Welcome. Today we are going to be operating on an Asus ROG Strix GL502VY. This laptop has the GeForce GTX 970M. So for this you're also going to need a small Phillips head bit. This is a 2.5. So go ahead and flip it over and we're going to remove all of the bottom case screws. Alright, once we have those bottom case screws removed, we're going to find the seam between the palm rest and the bottom case and just get a flat tool in there and separate the two. And just work your way around and undo the little snaps, and it'll allow you to remove that bottom case, and then you'll have access to the inside of the laptop. Alright, so first we'll go ahead and remove the memory. So we'll spread those little retainers and remove the memory sticks. Alright, now we can also remove the battery. Looks like there's nothing holding it down besides a few screws, so we'll go ahead and remove those screws. Alright, before we start wiggling it too much, we're just going to pull up on the connector with our fingernails. And then we can remove the battery. Alright, next we'll go ahead and do the hard drive. So we'll remove the 4 screws holding the caddy into the palm rest. Alright, once you have these screws out, we'll just pull down on that caddy to pull it out of the SATA connector, and then to remove your hard drive, just the 2 screws on each side. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove the SSD drive. So that's just 1 screw, and pull it out of the motherboard. And we'll go ahead and remove that Wi-Fi card as well. Just gently lift up on those antennas and remove the screw. And you can just wiggle the card out of the connector. Alright, now we're going to have to remove it anyway, so we'll go ahead and remove that display cable and just free it from the cooling fans there. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove the fan and heatsink. So with this type of connector, you're just going to kind of push it down and out using the tabs on each side. And once you have the connectors removed, we can go ahead and remove the screws for each fan. Looks like there's 3. And then we'll also remove the 8 screws, it looks like, for the heatsink assembly. All right, once we have these screws out, we can go ahead and remove the cooling fans. It looks like these are pretty well covered with dust, which is, it's really important for your laptop to at least clean it out once in a while, because the heatsink looks like it's pretty clogged with dust, as well as the fan, so that can overheat and ruin your processor and graphics processing unit. So just a good reminder to use some canned air or something on your heatsink fins from the back or the side or wherever they're open, to kind of blast that dust out of there so that your fan can do its job. All right, so for the heatsink, a lot of times the thermal paste can really adhere the heatsink on really well. So in this case, I'm just going to get a flat tool and just kind of put it under there and just wiggle it a little bit and try to work that heatsink off. So I'll just do it gently and a lot of wiggling, and you will overcome the adhesive aspect of that thermal paste. And this one has a lot, as you can see, so you'll have to do some pretty good wiggling, but you'll get it off. All right, so we have the motherboard pretty accessible. Looks like it's partially held under the hinge screws as well. So what we're gonna do is just go around and take off the ribbons and cables and get this motherboard ready to extract from the palm rest. So I'll start with the keyboard. We'll just flip up on that connector and then remove the ribbon, and repeat with all of the other ribbon connectors. And once you're done, just flip that connector back down so it's help prevent it from getting broken. Alright, so that looks like all of the ribbons and cables that I can see. So we're going to go ahead and remove the hinge screws and the other screws that are holding the motherboard to the palm rest assembly. All right, once we have those screws out, we're going to go ahead and lift these hinges up to finish freeing the motherboard. All right, one last check to make sure we have all the ribbons and cables on this side, and it looks like we do. So we're just gonna, like the heatsink, give the motherboard a little wiggle. So it looks like the audio jack on that side is partially lodged into the palm rest. So we'll try lifting from the other side. And just give it a little bit of a wiggle and gently lift up. And then we'll gently flip it over and make sure that there's no ribbons on the other side, which there's not. So that is how you remove the motherboard. Alright, so what we're left with is the palm rest assembly, and the keyboard is not removable, it's riveted in. The touchpad, it looks like there's just a few screws that go across the top here to remove the touchpad assembly. LED board, and then your two speakers are just kind of held in there by little clips. So if you need to service the touchpad or the LED board or the speakers, that's how you do it. Just pretty easily exposed right there. So now that we have the hinges removed, we'll go ahead and finish up taking that palm rest off. And now we can work on the display assembly. Alright, now we are ready to separate the display assembly. We're going to remove the rest of that Windex off of there. We're going to remove the front bezel and separate it from the back cover. So you're going to want to get these two screw covers and remove those. Small flathead works pretty well. And then we will remove the two Phillips head bits underneath. Alright, once you have those Phillips bits out, we will get some fingers on the inside of the bezel, and then just work your way around and pop that bezel up and off of the display assembly. And a lot of times the bezel is held on by tape at the bottom as well. So as you go along the bottom part, there's usually going to be some adhesive there on the inside that you need to pull, as well as unsnapping the bezel. So it helps to put your fingers underneath there and just kind of press down on the plastic that it's stuck to as you're pulling up, and you'll see why in just a second. So that's basically what Asus kind of adhered everything to, is the bottom strip of the LED screen. So if you don't try to kind of push your hand underneath here as you're popping that bezel up, it's going to rip most of this plastic off. So as it stands, you know, we got a little bits of it off, but the screen in general is okay. But just keep in mind there that on the bottom of the bezel, it is taped pretty well to the LCD screen. Alright, so now we can go ahead and remove the LCD screen. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 4 screws holding the screen in place. And since we're taking it all the way apart, it doesn't really matter too much the order. You take the hinges off if you want. They're pretty well exposed here, just 4 screws each side. So once you have the bezel off, it's pretty easy to work on the rest of the display assembly. Alright, so once you have those LCD screws out, we're going to try to get a fingernail underneath one of the tabs here. And then we'll just turn that screen over, and you can see the connector there on the bottom. It's held on by a little bit of sticky tape. So we'll just get underneath the corner of that. And then once you have that tape pulled back, just pull that connector free from the screen. And you can remove the LCD screen. Alright, so now we can go ahead and do the hinges. Remove the 3 screws from each side and remove the hinge. Alright, so the remaining part of the video cable, we'll just pull up from the tape and then wind it through the little channels here. And so we get to the webcam, and then the cable is held onto the webcam underneath a piece of sticky tape that you're going to need to pull back. And once you have that pulled back, you can just pop that connector out of the webcam and free the video cable. Wi-Fi antennas are just held in by some sticky tape, and then they kind of weave in the little channels. We're going to leave these with the back cover, but we'll finish up by removing the webcam. And with webcams, you want to pry from either the bottom or the top, whichever is accessible. You never want to pry from either side because it's really thin and flimsy and you'll end up breaking it. So just pry from the bottom or the top. And it is also held on by some pretty good retainers. So once you get it popped out, then it's really easy to remove. Alright, so it's a good time to check your hinge connectors. Make sure that these screws are unbroken. This one looks good. The little metal screw retainers are all in place and they're not cracked or broken. So this back cover is good to go. We're going to leave the Wi-Fi antennas in place. And that is how you disassemble an Asus GL502VY. Republic of Gamers. And if this video helped you or you found it informative, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.